skullduggery, the murder, injustice, irony and sequel that commenced on the night of Wednesday the 16th, 1876. We stand before the grave of Nathaniel Cox, a police constable of this county, the village policeman of East Coker, a well-respected family man who was killed in the discharge of his duties, aged only 37. On the night in question, the police were patrolling in pairs. It was the night before Yeovil Fair. Trouble was expected, with an increase in crimes such as horse thieving, poaching, and at about 10 o'clock, Nathaniel Cox and his fellow police officer, Henry Stacey, the police officer from West Coker, were on duty together. And having reached Netherton, 2 miles over there, just where the railway line goes over the road, they saw a horse and cart and 3 men who they recognised. And they suspected there was a 4th man hidden in the cart. Greetings passed between the officers and the men. And though having recognised the men as notorious local poachers, they had no lawful reason to stop them. Cox and Stacey continued on their patrol. Sometime later, they came across the cart again. This time, the vehicle appeared to be loaded. The 4 men were on foot, leading the horse. Cox stopped it and questioned the men about their load, but the men responded with violence, striking Cox heavily upon the head and dislodging his helmet. They then proceeded to kick him as he lay on the ground. Meanwhile, Stacey, who was searching the contents of the cart, ran to help Cox, but he himself was knocked unconscious. When Stacey regained consciousness, they had fled. Although badly injured, he made his way across the fields that now form part of Gooseslade Farm and roused a nearby farmer at Darvel. They took 2 labourers in a cart and searched for Cox. Sadly, they found him dead where he lay. Stacey, who suffered a severe head wound, would remain in a critical condition in hospital for several weeks, but eventually made a full recovery. The 4 men were well-known poachers from East Coker. George Hutchings, the father, and his 2 sons, Giles and Peter. And the 4th man was Charles Baker. They managed to evade justice for some time, actually, but were eventually captured or gave themselves up. And they were charged with murder of P.C. Cox and the attempted murder of P.C. Stacey. Peter Hutchings was discovered in a hayloft in West Coker, belonging to a farmer named Richards. The Richards were indicted as accessories after the fact for harbouring them. For their trial at Taunton on the Spring Assize of 1877, the Chief Justice, Sir Alexander Coburn, the head of the judiciary, the top man, came to the Western Circuit especially to try the case. Such was its notoriety. The case caused great excitement. There were headlines in the regional and national press. In modern day terms, it was a show trial. If the internet had been around, it would have been broken. During the trial, Charles Baker stated that George Hutchings, the father, had not taken part in the assault. Clock's on time now. He hadn't taken part in the assault, but merely driven the cart. The judge's decision was to grant him a free pardon. They granted him a free pardon, but he died before he left police custody. He died in police custody. Poetic justice, you might say. As to the remaining 3, surely they would hang for this terrible deed. They beat a policeman to death. They'll hang, surely. But no. After deliberating for just 45 minutes, the jury found all 4 guilty of manslaughter. not murder, manslaughter. And they each received a life sentence of penal servitude for the term of 24 years. One of the reasons for not finding them guilty of murder and handing down a death sentence was that it could not be proved which of them had struck the blow that killed Cox. Often in these cases, all three will have hanged. There's a folk song called the Oakham Poachers, about three poachers up in Nottinghamshire, Rutland, somewhere like that. Three brothers. One of them killed one of the poachers. They were out poaching. All three of them were hanged for that one murder. But in this case, it was turned on its head. Sir Alexander Cockburn told the jury, and this is his words, "When P.C. Cox met his death, it was by foul means, both gross and brutal. That the violence was the act of some, if not all the prisoners, is, I feel, clear. But as to how and in what precise circumstance the constable met his death, we are left absolutely in the dark." I don't buy that one, I don't know about you. I can't buy that. The learned judge was very emphatic in laying down the law. "Every law-abiding citizen has the right to use the Queen's highway, unmolested." This is what he said. And that the police in this case had no right to stop the cart without reasonable ground of suspicion. And that the person stopped had the right to use reasonable violence to proceed. Bloody judge is rubber stamping the murder. I can't believe this. Cockburn made it very clear that in the case the police were the aggressors and that a verdict of murder would be unsafe and that the crime, if proved, should be one of manslaughter. So there we are. So, Nathaniel Cox lies here, denied the justice he deserved, in my view. I don't know what you think after hearing what I've said. Adding insult to injury is the fact that P.C. Cox's grave here in Coker Churchyard lies next to that of George Hutchings. George Hutchings, the father of two of his attackers, is buried here. I'm not sure exactly where, but next to that grave. Sometime later, Cox's widow said that the night before her husband's death, he had a nightmare. In this, he dreamed that he had a fight with some men who had given him a horrible smack on the head. Sadly, that dream came fatefully true. The three convicts were imprisoned at Pentonville, Dartmoor and Portland. But while being held at one point in Chatham, in Kent, Giles Hutchings escaped. He swam the River Medway and made his way back to his old home over the hills above Sherborne. He hid in a wood, managed to elude the Dorset police, not hard even now. who were on the alert for him. Finally, he made his way to Southampton. He crossed to the Isle of Wight, where he worked on a farm, undetected, in the Undercliff, at Knighton in the Undercliff. But his luck ran out, and he was recognised by a butcher who had known him, and he rounded on him and turned him in. He was rearrested and completed his years of servitude in Portland. So that's as much as I've got on the story. There's more to it if you dig deeper. Like I said, the attitudes of the time, you know, the judge taking the view that the police were the aggressors, you know, is beyond me really, but it's an intriguing story. Thank you very much for listening.
Other hit. You were better than me.